Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome to another late night edition of Crime Time with DutyRon. I am a retired New York City police detective with 20 years of law enforcement. And guys and girls, if you like all things true crime related from a police perspective, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you will get all things DutyRon when I go live or upload another video. And tonight we're going to talk about the hunt for Dirty Laundrie. Brian Laundrie. I know it's tacky, it's played out, but he is dirty and filthy. We're going to talk about the hunt for him and evidence collection with our good friend Ed Wallace, a retired New York City first grade detective out of the crime scene unit. He's got a tremendous amount of skills and knowledge in evidence collection and crime scene analysis. We're going to have him join us in a short period of time. And I also, if you hang around for midway through this stream, I have another special guest. He is phenomenal in K9 searches. I'm not going to tell you who he is, but you will recognize him when he comes on. He's been a guest of the show before. I want to say a special thank you to my Patreon supporters, my channel members, and all the folks who positively interact in all of the live streams. You guys are instrumental in making this community great, and I appreciate you guys. And anyone who becomes a member or sends super chat, it's always appreciated, never, ever necessary. I'm going to play a quick clip for you tonight. This might be old news for some of you guys. You might have seen it already, but I think it sets up what we're going to be talking about, which is pinpointing evidence collection for everything Brian Laundrie. FBI is searching. He is a wanted felon. He's got a federal warrant out for his arrest, and he's a fugitive, a felony fugitive with the FBI looking for him. So we're going to play this real quick and then we'll get right into it. Let me go full screen so you guys can see it all.
Video now from.
Despite scaled-back efforts, the search presses on for Gabby Petito's fiance, Brian Laundrie.
The FBI is investigating some surveillance video now from a Pinellas County campground. News Channel 8's Nico Clemens is in Northport with the story.
There are more questions than answers right now. Of course, the biggest, what's the latest on the search for Brian Laundrie? Tonight, we learned more about a cell phone the FBI is now looking at.
I believe they're going to find him. The FBI's searching everywhere.
New developments in the manhunt for Brian Laundrie, who vanished more than 2 weeks ago. His attorney tells 8 on Your Side, Brian opened an account with AT&T for a new phone on September 4th. The attorney says Brian left that phone at home the day he went for a hike in the Carlton Reserve 10 days later. The FBI now has the phone. Pinellas County records show days after buying that new phone, the Laundrie family checked into the Fort DeSoto campground September 6th through the 8th. A spokeswoman with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office says they gave surveillance video from the campground to the FBI Tuesday. The FBI is still searching the Carlton Reserve. Search teams are focusing on areas with water. And not far from that area,
we got to keep the momentum going, keep it strong, because eventually he's going to be found.
A memorial for Gabby Petito is growing. People from all over the state and country are coming by to pay their respects.
It just shows what impact somebody that nobody has even met has left on this society and America as a whole.
A small memorial is also growing at the Laundrie's home for Petito. Tonight, there's a growing search for answers. Answers many believe Laundrie has.
It's a nice reminder to the family that they should come forward and say something.
And the FBI has not released that surveillance video from Fort DeSoto. The spokeswoman says they're not addressing any specific questions about the investigation. In Northport, I'm Nico Clemens, 8 on Your Side.
Well, there you have it, folks. Just a little bit of background on what's going on currently with the search for Brian Laundrie. FBI and lots of resources behind the scenes are working tirelessly. See, like when we sit home and ask ourselves questions, what is going on? What are they doing? There's lots of things that are going on behind the scenes that we don't know about and that we won't know about. But we're going to bring on a special guest here. He is no slouch in the evidence collection field. He is a 20-plus year veteran of the New York City Police Department. He retired as a first grade. That is the highest grade detective out of the crime scene unit. It's probably not out of crime scene, but he'll correct me. Edward Wallace Jr. is joining us. Ed, thank you so much for taking out your time on a Friday night, and thank the missus for lending you to us and the Crime Time community.
Happy to be here, Ron.
Yeah, so you and I have been speaking about the evidence and evidence collection. FBI, as we know, have gone back to the location. Lots of speculation, lots of folks, shaking their head and questioning why are they back there. Can you expand just a tad bit on possible reasons and what your take is on the FBI going back and forth and shaking up the tree a little bit?
Well, the only thing I can think of is that as their investigation proceeds forward, they're uncovering more information that's shedding light on the possibility of additional evidence being found in that house. And therefore, they're making multiple applications to a judge to get warrants to go back in there and gather this potential evidence.
Yeah, and we spoke about earlier the cooler like bag that we saw the FWFLA broadcast on their show a bit earlier. I'm going to play a little bit of that so we can show the audience this. Everybody's up in arms and thinking and speculating what could that be. So I'm going to.
It could be. Okay. Here comes the FBI.
Oh, they got a cooler bag there.
I'm going to pause it on that, if I may. What's your thoughts on that as someone in the evidence collection professional? What's your professional opinion on that bag? I've actually never seen one of those.
It's not your standard forensic evidence collection bag. I'll tell you that right now. If something needed to be cooled, kept cool, I can think of certain chemicals that need to be collected that way. I could also think of certain biological evidence that may need to be collected that way. It also could be scent evidence. If they went in there to gather on some scent cartridges or vacuum scent cartridges, and they're stored in there and just kept cool. It could be that as well, or it could be just their way of carrying some kind of electronic evidence.
We could be talking, Ed, perhaps DNA evidence of some sort.
It could be, but most DNA evidence doesn't need to be cooled like that. I mean, it's best if it's stored in a frost-free refrigerator, but it doesn't have to be so long as it's dry.
Right. And again, the speculation is that they've gone back there to find articles of clothing and things of that nature. I've read about this, that they're back there to collect evidence to help them track or find Brian Laundrie. But we also can't forget that there's also still potential for evidence of Gabby's in there as well. That investigation is far from over. Obviously, it's in its not infancy stage, but they're still collecting evidence as well. So again, people are asking in the chat, gloves, no gloves. It all depends on what evidence they're taking out. Do you want to speak a little bit more about the gloves and no gloves?
Yeah. You change your gloves in between each item of evidence that you collect. You never use the same pair of gloves twice. And to be quite honest with you, they went in and out of that location several times. It's kind of a standard in crime scene investigations to wear some personal protective equipment in the form of tie-back suits, booties, suits with booties and a hood, and gloves, an N95 mask or something similar, and some eye protection, such as eye goggles. Remember what I told you in the previous episodes about Locard's exchange principle, where when two items come together and separate, in this case, three items, the scene and maybe two people, they're going to leave bits of each other and take away bits of each other, including the scene. Crime scene investigators are not immune from this. And in order to protect the crime scene from us, we put these tie-back suits on to protect the scene from us and us from the scene.
Yeah.
And I didn't see any of them do that.
No. No, we'll show it again. First, I want to say, not today, Satan sends in a $200 super chat, and thank you for your generosity. Much appreciated. Not today, Satan. Love that screen name. Wow. Says back the blue. Thank you for that. Amen. Back my brothers and sisters of all lines of law enforcement from the state, federal, and local level. And don't forget our military, because they are out there protecting our freedoms and all of our rights at home and abroad. Let me just see what else happening here in the chat, because we got another super chat that came in. Zan Beats sends in a $5 super chat and says, why haven't they released the autopsy of Gabby Petito? With the Gabby Petito body cam footage, question if officers can handle domestic violence situations. Not a topic that we're going to get into tonight, because the topic of this show, as you could see, is pinpointing evidence collection. We have a specialist here. But thank you, Zan's Beats, for that question. The autopsy, we spoke with Barbara Butcher 2 or 3 live streams ago. That won't come out for reasons of keeping the investigation tight and close to the vest. They're not going to show their cards and expose everything that they have, although we would assume that as at this point they know the cause of death, and they're just not going to be quick to release that. Now, human nature, we want to know it, we want to see it, we're all curious, but to keep an investigation solid, you can't do that. And Ed can speak for hours about how to keep an investigation solid. He teaches those courses. He teaches other law enforcement across the country about that said thing. You want to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you do, Ed, and what you've done while you were on the job, teaching other agencies and other investigators on crime scene and
Yes. Well, when I was on the NYPD crime scene unit, I was one of the senior training officers there, and we would go around the state and conduct crime scene investigation training. We would train various law enforcement agencies throughout the state of New York, and frankly, other state, local, federal, didn't matter. If you were working in New York, we wanted to train you up on the standards, the forensic standards. And actually, one of the main areas that we started training all over the state was DNA.
Right.
So we had gotten a grant, and the grant paid for us to go study DNA first over in England, and this is in 2000. We went to the UK and we studied DNA there. And
Wow.
then we came back to the New York and developed training courses for crime scene investigators on how to properly collect and package DNA from crime scenes to get it to the lab
and
for
that
analysis.
and that's not an easy task to do. You can't just go out there and start trying to collect evidence without knowing how to do it. So what would you feel is percentages of probability in this case? I feel, just from being an investigator myself, but not an expert in DNA and solving crimes that way. What do you feel percentage wise they'll be relying on DNA to solve this case? I think it's a high probability, right?
Well, there's two issues here. One, they were fiancés, right? So you would expect some level of each other's DNA to be on each other's clothings and belongings and places they shared together, whether it's a vehicle or an apartment or a bedroom or bathroom, whatever the case may be. So we have to look at the context of the DNA evidence, what kind of DNA evidence is, where it was located, and so forth, and what is it associated with. For instance, okay, if I found that body in the field, okay, I would examine that body with a thermal imaging camera and an alternate light source um, to look and say strangulation. Let's just say strangulation of the neck. And what ends up happening is during strangulations like that, you'll get bruising that hasn't surfaced to the skin because it's a contusion and blood is forming beneath the skin, but it hasn't surfaced yet, so you can't see the bruises. With
Mm.
the thermal imager, you will see the blood pooling behind the skin, and with an ultraviolet light, you can then shine that in the same area. And if blood is behind the skin that will surface later at the morgue, it'll turn black in those areas. And sometimes you can even see um, the digits of the fingers around the neck. And then at that point, if you collect DNA from that where those bruises are, and also possible fingerprints, because I've gotten fingerprints from human skin. Both you can get them from live victims, but more importantly, and last longer on victims that are not alive.
That's
It's
fascinating. Wow. I mean, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but that's like a wow moment because I would question like that? How long are you able to detect that if, say, a person's in Gabby's case, 20 plus days of decomposition out in the elements? Now you get her body back into the autopsy room. Is that still feasible to use that technique or technology there?
Well, and I would also introduce infrared photography at that point if she was badly decomped at the skin around the neck and things of that nature. Um, I would then introduce infrared photography to try to locate these locations as well. Now, again, she was out in that environment, hot and cold environments, hot during the day, cold at night,
Right.
possible rain, and possible. The body was disturbed by indigenous wildlife and insects and things of that nature. All of that could have impacted these areas. But then I would also be looking for contusions on the wrist, on the ankles, anything that would indicate maybe that she was dragged or pulled, and then I'd look for the DNA and fingerprints in those areas of the skin as well, if the skin was still conducive or intact
Right.
to do that kind of analysis.
Right, right. Hey, Ed, if you don't mind, I like to do this towards the end, but this was a question that was interesting to me. It comes in from Jonathan B. Swift. At DutyRon, what's a vacuum scent cartridge and how does it work? I don't know.
Okay. I've done them and I've seen them. Again, so mostly canine handlers do this. They'll take out a vacuum scent cartridge. It goes in the front of a vacuum, and they'll vacuum an area of clothing that belong to the person that they're searching for, and or some other type of belongings. It doesn't have to be. It could be a seat that is predominantly used by that person, or something to that effect, and they vacuum it, and it traps in a cartridge the scent, and then the cartridge is sealed, and then the cartridge can then be removed from that scene and then introduced to the canine, who will then sniff it once it's opened and sniff it, and then our next guest could speak more to that as well. But I've seen it done in my presence.
Yeah, and I was gonna wait to let his earpods charge up a little bit, but
Yeah,
I'm gonna bring Brian on now because it's a perfect time. It's a great segue.
and that's what I was thinking was in the bag,
Right.
in the cooler.
Right, right. So we're gonna let Brian because he's been watching. I want to just see if he can give me a thumbs up if he's good with his ear pods. I see him setting them up right now. If they're good, Brian, give me a thumbs up and I will add you on. I could see you if you want to give me a thumbs up on the ear pods if they're working. All right, we got the thumbs up. All right, joining us now from I believe Oklahoma is Brian Smith. He's part of the Oklahoma Search and Rescue Council, and he is a professional canine search and rescue. He's the director of OKCM /SAR Search and Rescue. Thank you, Brian, for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, so we were talking about the vacuum cartridge. I thought, that was for Kirby vacuum cleaners, but Ed has put us on to do you guys want to talk about it? I'll step out because I don't know much about it. You want to take this, Ed, and
Yeah,
talk?
Brian, we were just asked the question by one of our guests about the K9 vacuum cartridges for scent. And I gave my background on it, having witnessed a canine handler and his hound dog using it. So if you've used it before, maybe you can tell the audience about your experience with it.
So it's not anything that we've ever used in the course of our actions, but I'm familiar with it. And it's just a way to collect and isolate the scent of the person that you're wanting to look for. You've got two kinds of Lifeline dogs. You have an area search K9, which will go out into an area and find any live human. And then you have your scent specific K9s. And those are the dogs that you're going to give a scent. You're going to give them a scent picture, introduce it to them, and then you're going to put them in command to go and find that person. And a lot of the times what they'll do is once they introduce that odor to the K9, they'll let the K9 kind of run the gamut of all the people who might be standing around at the time so that he can say, no, 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 not him, not him, not him, and then take off and go searching.
Mm-hmm. And where does the cadaver dog fit in that?
So a cadaver dog is trained specifically on decomp. I have no doubt that they were using cadaver dogs in the search for Gabby. And those dogs, like I said, we train on just different articles of human remains, whether it's skin, tissue, fat, bone. We make, one of the things we make is called a Cadaver Jar, and we put hair, teeth, blood, and tissue, and some bone in the jar. So it's basically a complete scent picture of what a decomposing human body would be. And, we introduce that to the dog, and then we teach them to go and find it. And then we start giving them problems, putting that odor in a place where we know the trees are going to chimney that odor up and spread it out so that it's confusing for the dogs, so that the dogs learn to work through those problems so that they understand, even though they may be getting a scent coming from the air, it's on the ground, to keep moving, and you're going to get to it.
Right. And this is a rewards-based training, right?
Absolutely. So different handlers do different things. Some handlers reward with food, some handlers reward with a praise toy, and then some handlers just reward with, praise and excitement with the dog. Different dogs respond to different reward systems, and you really, the phrase we use is train the dog in front of you. So if the dog you're working with that day is really responsive to food, then you're going to use food to encourage him to get the job done. And if you have a dog that's really responsive to a particular ball, and some dogs like to tug, and some handlers will carry a tug toy, and when the dog, gives the final trained response, they break out that tug toy and they're playing, and it's a party.
And there's certifications for the dogs as well.
Absolutely. There are multiple certifying agencies all across the United States. The North American Police Working Dog Association has their certifications. NASAR, the National Association for Search and Rescue, has a certification. One of the people that we work with, Dr. Paul Martin, and HRD K9 specialist, he has a specialization, and he has a certification for what they call a scientific or a forensic working dog. And those dogs, they train specifically for clandestine graves and aged remains, that type of thing.
And you don't want to cross-train the dog in too many disciplines, right? You just try to stick to one.
There are some trainers who will, cross-train, have a Lifeline and an HRD. It's not something that we do. It's not something that I personally recommend, just because as the dog gets older, you run the risk of the dog getting confused, or not learning what, not understanding what you're wanting them to do that day. And if you're looking for a live human and that dog is out there thinking it's a cadaver search, you may go right past your person and miss them.
Yes.
Hey, Brian, I wanted to jump in here just for a second, because I got so excited that you were here, and I didn't even get a chance to properly introduce you. Can you give my audience a little bit of your background, what kind of dogs you have, and some of the things that you do over there?
Sure. So on top of being the director of the Oklahoma Search and Rescue Council, which is our nonprofit organization, I'm also the director of the Oklahoma City Metro Search and Rescue. So that's where the OKCM SAR comes in. And the Oklahoma City Metro Search and Rescue offers no-cost assistance to families of missing persons throughout the state of Oklahoma, whether it be a social media campaign or whether we need to put boots on the ground and go look for this person. We're going to do whatever we can to help these families find their loved ones. And as far as myself personally, I've been doing search and rescue for quite some time, and we've introduced dogs into that. We we always recommend that if you're going to do a canine training, that you learn to do the ground pounding first, that you learn the basic search techniques, and then you bring the dogs into the equation later, because essentially all the dogs are is another tool in your tool belt to find your missing person. So with that, I train cadaver dogs, and I train area search Lifeline dogs. So my K9, my German Shepherd K9 Siri, she is an area search Lifeline. And so when I turn her loose and put her in command, she's going to go out in the woods and find any live person that might be out there. And then my Dutch Shepherd K9 Mila, she is our cadaver dog. She's a wide area search cadaver recovery. So we train her on what we call wet remains. Wet remains is going to be more tissue based and less bone based.
Right.
And so her job is to go into large areas, kind of like the search for Gabby, where, you know, you may have 500-600 acres that you're needing to clear. And so that's what she does.
Excellent. And, you know, that's great information, because a lot of my people who subscribe and follow Brian, they love the dogs. And, you know, there's not many human beings that don't like dogs. And there's also a word on the street: if you don't like a dog, you're not human. You know what I mean? But listen, you know, we saw both of your dogs last time. And before I let you go towards the end of this, I'm going to ask if it's all right with you to show your dogs, because everybody would love to see them. But back into this search for Brian Laundrie. When they were out in the First Reserve, which is a huge 25,000 acre location, it didn't look like that would really be an area where you could use dogs. They were out in those pontoon boats and big, large search vehicles that are up high. It was swampy. Could you talk about that? Where dogs would come into play there?
Yeah, I'm here. So, and even in those areas, you know, where you've got something like that, part of the handler canine relationship is the handler understanding the dog's behavior. So you might use an area search Lifeline canine, put them out there on a boat and start driving them through the areas, just to, you know, that dog's going to be air scenting. It's going to be checking the air. And if the dog gives an alert to its handler that, hey, you know, I smell somebody over here, let's go over here, and so that they can redirect and get closer to that area and see if they can narrow in on what that dog is giving a signal to his handler about. And it's really like, it's just understanding your dog. Every dog is different. Again, train the dog in front of you, but you know, just the behavior change, understanding that, you know, like my dog Mila, when we're working and she's not smelling any odor, her tail is going to be up and wagging and moving. And
Right.
once she picks up the scent of human decomposition, she slows down, her body language changes, and that tail comes down. And instead of waving in the air like a flag, it's dropped, and she gets really serious. And that's when she's trying to zoom in or hone in on the source of the odor. So, you know, I can be with her, we're working, and I can watch, and I can see that change in her behavior. And that lets me know that, you know, she's detecting human decomp, and that everybody, you know, out there needs to be really alert and keeping their eyes on her.
Right. So those are extreme signs. Those are big indicators for you that not only is she working, but she's found something. So
Correct.
that's interesting to know. Now we're looking at the Fort DeSoto Park, the camp area where Brian Laundrie, it's been alleged it's not alleged. We know that he went with his family there on, I had the dates here, September 6th to the 8th. They went in with 3 and came out with 2. I would think that the dogs, it's a pretty flat area. It's a large campground, but it's kind of organized, and it's not floodlands like what we were looking at earlier. I think the dogs would play a huge role. We saw the FBI, Brian, go in. Ed and I spoke about it. The FBI was in there getting possible articles of clothing or anything that would have his scent on it, and retrieving that and then bringing it probably down into Pinellas County. Any thoughts on that?
Sure. So that sounds like a situation where they would use a scent specific canine, and that would be the situation where they would go in and try to collect scent articles from the home. The best things to do that are t-shirts, bedding, pillows, things, from the upper body. You don't want to get too far below the waist, because then you're getting a lot of contamination, like shoes and socks and pants. Those items can be contaminated from the ground and from just the world around you. So we prefer to use scent articles from, the upper body and the torso, around the chest, the head, the neck, and those things. But they're going to collect that scent, and they're going to go to that campsite, because they know which campsite was rented to the Laundries. They know a spot where Brian Laundrie was, if he went with his family and he was there, and they can introduce that odor, that scent, to those dogs, and then give those dogs an opportunity where they know Brian Laundrie was. We have a place, we have a location, a starting point, and hopefully those dogs, even with an older scent, can work that trail and give those officers a direction to travel or an idea of which way he might have went, so that they can focus their search. And we're not looking at 25,000 acres. He was here, and it looks like his direction of travel is this way. Well, you've cut that in half now. You don't have to go this way. You're going to only focus on this side. So it's using those canines and understanding their behavior to narrow down your search areas.
Excellent. And thank you so much for that description. And my next question to you, and this is also user generated from the chat: how far would a specific, say, a bloodhound or specific canines be able to track, like miles wise? Can they track somebody for 25 miles? Can they track what are the parameters, or what's the capabilities of what these dogs can do, Brian?
Well, in a situation like that where you have a long trail track, you're going to have to rotate your dogs. And because even a trailing canine, he can only go, he, whatever. The animal can only go about 2 to 3 hours before you're going to have to stop. You're going to have to give that dog a break. You're going to have to let that dog rest. And so that's when you have multiple dogs, you have multiple teams, and the one dog will stop. They'll bring in another dog. They'll introduce that scent article to that dog. They'll put that dog on the trail where the other dog left off, and then they keep working. And it's just a matter, it's like a relay race, for lack of a better description, is that dog is going to work and work and work. And as long as they're staying in scent and staying on trail, that handler is going to keep working with them. And then at some point, the handler is going to know, my dog's getting tired, or she is getting off scent, is getting distracted easily, whatever the case may be. And that's when it's time to take that dog out of the field and bring another dog in and let it pick up the trail.
It was interesting. The last time we got together, you had mentioned about that there is just a specific amount of time that the dog can work. It's just like a human being. They get tired, and you have to give them the rest and get them to go. You got to get relief for them. They're not just machines. They need to, there's a certain, you called it a certain working period of time, right? Is that true?
Operational period, and generally 2 to 3 hours is about the limit to what you want to work your canines.
Hey, Eddie, you mentioned to me, Ed, that you had some experience with canines. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm old. I get old. Sometimes I have a brain fart, as if you will. But what kind of background do you have with search dogs, Ed?
Well, at numerous crime scenes, I've used canines. So at arson crime scenes or fire crime scenes, you have your canine dogs that are specific for arson detection or accelerant detections. You never use a canine, an explosive detection canine at a post-blast scene, because it's just too much explosive that on a post-blast scene that is all over the place. So it just confuses the dog. So you keep those dogs out of there. You use those dogs, however, your explosive detection canines, to locate possible explosive devices that haven't gone off yet. So we had that. And then we had Sherlock, our hound dog, who was our tracker in the NYPD, and he passed away, and he's been subsequently replaced. But he came out to a couple of my crime scenes. sniffed over some of the suspect's belongings and took off like a dart after that scent. And he's caught many people in his time.
Outstanding. Any experience with anything explosive wise with the dogs, Brian?
No, we've never done anything outside of search and rescue. I've worked with some other handlers that do some different stuff. They do, a lady that I know, her name is Lola, and she does all kinds of scent detection work, whether it's training dogs to track deer for hunters, or training dogs to detect other scents. I mean, they use dogs now to detect lung cancer in your breath, and it's
Wow.
just unbelievable the different things that a dog's nose can discern.
Amazing.
I had a case in Staten Island, Ron, where it was picked up on a FBI wiretap of a mafia. It was called the Tommy Karate case, and he was a hitman for the mafia, and he would dismember his victims in his bathtub, put them in suitcases in out in Brooklyn, and then drive them to a secluded area in Staten Island and bury them. So they picked up on a wire that he had done this, and so we were searching this one location, and we had cadaver dogs come in and sniff the area. We also used ground penetrating radar, and we started probing the ground and creating these holes for the dogs to sniff on the ground. And eventually, we found all the bodies in the suitcases.
Wow. Unbelievable. Hey, I want to get to the super chats here because they're important as well. Danielle Bolander sends in a $20 super chat, and she says, "You gentlemen are doing phenomenal work in all you do. Thank you so much for your valuable information. Stay safe out there." Thank you, Danielle, for that generous super chat. The next one comes in from Emily, my good friend. I just mailed out her Lost Is Not Alone wristband. Actually, one just like this from EquiSearch Midwest. So these are available on my website as a fundraiser for Dave Rader and his great organization. Emily says, "Love and respect for all searchers, 2- and 4-legged." Amen to that. Thank you, Emily. Let me get to the next one. Black Rose 11 sends in a $5 super chat. Great panel, great guests, Ed and Brian. And she had to also include DutyRon is awesome because Black Rose is my favorite, one of my favorite moderators, but she's like very good friends. We're in constant communication. So thank you for that, Black Rose.
Black Rose is one of my favorite Irish pubs in Boston.
There you go. You gotta love a good Irish pub, right, Brian?
Yep.
Hey, so I had a quick question for you because I know time is limited. It's Friday night. I don't want to hold you too long, Brian, but I'm going to go full screen with you on this. Again, I asked you before we went live how closely you've been following the Brian Laundrie, Gabby Petito case. In your opinion, soup to nuts here, going forward, we always have the U.S. Marshals, the fugitive enforcement. The U.S. Marshals are the best at tracking. But when we had the recovery out at the Grand Teton, Spread Creek, the camp area there, we saw horseback. We saw guys on horseback. Now, somebody was telling me, I think it was Twyla from EquiSearch, that they have horses that do like cadaver work. Is there any truth to that? I mean, I'm not saying that she was lying to me, but I've never heard of that. She said there is an organization that does searching for yeah.
There actually is. I can't remember the name of that group right now, but I do know that they are some folks that are working to train horses to do scent detection, cadaver detection, that kind of thing. And horses have always been a big part of search and rescue. We have the Oklahoma Mounted Search and Rescue. Of course, Texas EquiSearch is a horseback, EquiSearch, equines. That's a horseback based ideology. So it's not anything new to search and rescue. It gets the rider up higher. You get a wider field of vision. You're able to see some things, and you're able to cover more area because you're not working as hard. You're not walking. You're not hiking. So you can stay out in the field longer. Horses are an animal that are, they're more inclined to be able to walk and go for many hours at a time without needing a break. but and adding that scent detection to it, I don't know the exact capability of a horse's nose, but whether or not they can discern animal tissue from human tissue and that kind of thing. I mean, everybody knows the smell of something dead. We've all smelled it, whether it's a possum, an armadillo, or a cat in the road. Whatever it is, we've all gotten that odor, and everybody understands what the smell of death is. But it's a matter of discerning, is that human or is that animal? And that's what, we train our cadaver dogs to do. Like I told you last time, we actually, if I see some roadkill, I'm going to grab it and keep it and put it in the freezer so that when we go out to do trainings, we can put that roadkill right out there with our human remains. And we can make sure that our dogs are not alerting on the roadkill and only alerting on the human remains.
Right. And that's a big question that gets asked commonly. How do these dogs, make the distinction between a dead carcass that's out there, a wildlife, and a human? And that's exactly how they do it, through live training. And Brian, I asked you on the last one, where are you getting this human remains from? But there's many places where you can get that and use it for your training. So again, people are just freaked out by that, but that's what you have to do.
It is. And so we work with different people. One of the things that's real common is placental tissue. Every time a woman has a baby, that placenta comes out. That is human tissue. It's all manufactured inside the human body.
Right.
And it is a great item to train with. And it's plentiful. It's available. If a doula or a midwife or anybody in that kind of field, it's not very hard to come across placentas. But you don't want to exclusively train on that. You want to get other tissue, other things, and you just kind of have to be creative about it. We actually had a law passed here in the state of Oklahoma that allows the universities and the schools to provide us with that kind of tissue from the bodies that have been donated to science. So that's not something that goes on everywhere, but here in the state of Oklahoma, that's something that we've gotten done to make our job a little easier and to kind of legitimize what we're doing. So it's not that creepy, morbid, oh my gosh, what do you have in the freezer?
Right.
Kind of a thing to, for us, it's training material, it's training source, and it's no different than, if you were training a drug dog, you're going to have cocaine and marijuana
I
and
think
all this stuff.
I think everybody, Brian, would agree that, there's no issues there. We need to have these dogs working efficiently, and this is what you need to do. I'm going to quickly just go to some of these super chats because they're coming in strongly. Joe Murray sent in a super chat. I'm just trying to find it. That's our good friend and criminal defense attorney. He drafted up a measure. I want to find it. Oh, there it is. Hello, friends. You asked for it. I drafted it. Read it over and let's get it over to our representatives in Congress. It's a petition to Congress for congressional funding for search and rescue 501c3 Texas EquiSearch and RP search. That's Gene Robinson with the drone search. I would have liked to had Brian's 501c thrown in there. I know it's a little too late for it, but we'll get him on the next go around. And if we get that 2.5 million, I don't think that we would have a hard time getting Dave Rader to throw him 500,000 either. So let's see if we get that. Thank you, Joe Murray, for drafting that up. That's our great friend, retired NYPD police officer and criminal defense attorney now, Joe Murray. Another
Brian?
Wait a minute. Another super chat comes in. Anna, Lily's mom, sends in $50 and says, thank you for all you do. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ed.
Okay. Brian, many people ask, how long do scent last? Did we lose him?
No, I have him muted. Just go ahead and answer.
So like like a person, like the trailing cadaver dog, the trailing dogs, and not the cadaver dogs, because the decomp odor lasts a long time. It persists in the soil. You could, if somebody died and spent some time there, they could actually take and remove that person, and our dogs would still come and hit on that soil. But as far as a human, a live human, and tracking that trail, I know some handlers that train out, work 3 and 4 and 5 day old trails. I don't know too many people who train beyond that. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it makes the job more difficult, and it takes an experienced handler and experienced canine, a team that have been working together for a long time, and a handler that understands that dog's behavior. Because when you've got a really old trail or really old scent, the dog is having to work really hard, and you're having to make sure that the dog stays on task, and that that if the dog has lost that trail by their behavior, that okay, let's stop, let's go back someplace where we knew the trail was, or maybe let's switch out dogs, let's do something different. It's like I said, it's just a matter of understanding that dog's behavior.
Thank you so much for that answer. I got a quick question for Brian and Ed, and it's not even from the user comments. I got a question for you guys, and I'm not sure which one of you two can answer it, or if you could both answer it together. We have not seen the local, state, or federal partners that are investigating the Laundries that out at the home go into that home with a canine. Ed, I'll ask you to respond to this first. What would be your take on why they didn't use dogs to go into that home, given the fact of what we know? And again, we don't have access to the case file, but as a law enforcement professional, I wanted to ask you first, Ed. Everybody is kind of confused about it, and it's questions that continually come into my DutyRon.com website. What would you think maybe why they would not have a reason to bring in any kind of dogs into that home?
Well, I wasn't a big fan of letting dogs into my crime scene until I finished my documentation and search for evidence. Because the dog brings with its own set of issues, such as it brings its hairs into the crime scenes, it brings its saliva into the crime scenes, and so we have to worry about cross-contaminating different types of forensic evidence. But once I've completed my task, and especially if we're like, I mean, it wouldn't have been a bad idea if they brought a cadaver dog into that location to see if it could smell death on any of the clothing or the van. If it was brought to the van after the van was processed, to see if they could find that scent there.
And they could have very well brought a cadaver dog to where they brought the van to process it. No.
Yes. Brian, you want to jump in and add anything to that?
So yeah, I'm sure they did check that van with a cadaver dog. As far as bringing dogs into the Laundrie residence, I mean, you've got at least 3 people who live there, Brian Laundrie and his parents. On top of that, you had multiple officers coming in and out, FBI, local, coming in and out of the scene. So, now you've got the scent of 20, 30, who knows how many different people that's floating around inside that house. I mean, it's just all you're going to do is confuse the canine if you bring them into a location like that, because there's no way to isolate any one odor in an area like that without taking that, like I said, like you mentioned, taking that item and getting the scent off that item and sealing that scent inside of something else that you can take it away from the scene and introduce that to the dog. And now you're only giving the dog that scent, and you're not mixing all this, stuff. I mean, you see on TV, they bring the dog in here, smell the bed, now go find that person. Right. And it makes for great television, but it just doesn't work in the real world.
I agree. Thank you for that. I'm going to just quickly mute you because I've gotten a little feedback, but I got to go to this super chat because there's some great super chats. Your audio is great. It's just that when we're talking, it's coming back through. Angela01 Andrea sends in a $10 super chat, and she says, "Thank you for your insight and help, Brian. And as always, your hard work. Ed, you're one of the most humble and amazing men I've had a pleasure to knowing. DutyRon, you are a true heart of gold." Thank you so much for those kind words and support. Much, much appreciated. And I got to highlight this one. It's from Joan Hale. She says, "I've always wanted to donate my body to the body farm." Wow.
And they'll take it.
They'll take it. They'll take it. We can help you sign up for that if you need to. Kentucky Debbie, thank you so much for being a channel member and the $5 super chat. She says, can a person spread someone else's scent to trick the dogs? And I think we spoke about that. Do you want to chime in on that, Ed?
Yeah. If you dress up in Tyvek and gloves and so forth, and you're protecting yourself, and then you get some hairs or some articles of clothing, it's a possibility that that can occur. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's definite, but there's a possibility. Brian, would you like to jump in on that?
You mentioned with the crime scene, you know, unless you're covered up in Tyvek and you're sealed inside and out, everywhere you go where you're spreading their scent, you're spreading your scent to your body, what we call slough. You're losing skin cells or falling off your body as we speak. Everywhere you go, you're leaving little trails of dead skin cells, and that's what the dogs are picking up on is your skin cells and your particular scent.
Joe Murray, I put Brian's, this is it, right? Is this your website and a link to your organization right there? Screen,
Yeah,
right?
okcmsar.org. Yep.
Yep. All right, there it is, Joe Murray. He's going to add you into that request for funds to Congress. So thank you, Joe Murray. Let me just get to some of these other super chats. I just had to mute him because I think it got worse, whatever he did there. But no big deal. We'll work through it. Rouse Trucking. There he is, over the road trucker. Rouse Trucking sends in a $5 super chat and says, thank you for everything, Ron. No, thank you. Thank you for your support. It's greatly appreciated. And everyone should go over to Rouse Trucking and check out his channel. He's an over the road trucker. What would we do without our truckers? Let's reel it back in. I want to look to the chat for some questions. I see something in the private chat. Yes. Thank you, Josh. So I want to go to the chat for user questions. It doesn't have to be super chats, but please keep the questions related to K9 searches and evidence collection for Brian Laundrie and Gabby Petito. Let's keep it to this case, and let's keep it to evidence related and K9 related. And then we're going to get Brian to show us his canines. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Let's see. Question, try super chatting. All right, so Rouse Truckin asked this question. We're going to touch briefly on this, Eddie. Ed, we talked about this beforehand. He's talking about Dog the Bounty Hunter. That's his real name, Dwayne Chapman. He says, everyone's banking on the Dog the Bounty Hunter to find Brian Laundrie. There's been a lot of, there's been a lot of mother effing law enforcement, and everyone's saying that they aren't doing enough. They dropped the ball. They let him get away. Listen, we can argue about this all night long. I'm not going to deep dive into that because I don't like to second guess what people are doing and what's going on. But it isn't a good look because he is on the run right now. But it's not proper to go and point fingers because law enforcement are working tirelessly night and day to find not just only Brian Laundrie, but all the bad guys that are out there. They risk their lives day in and day out. They put their lives on the line. I shared a video today of 2 officers getting shot at as they did a car stop, and a female officer saved her partner by applying a tourniquet. It was a tough video to look at. I encourage you to go over to DutyRon Police and Crime Chat Group on Facebook and take a peek at that footage. And when you watch that footage, it may give you a little bit of a different look on what law enforcement does and how they put their lives on the line every day for complete strangers. Ed, I just wanted to lean on you again and I'm leaning on you a lot, the evidence collection as what we've seen so far from the first go around, dozens and dozens of boxes. Now, we can argue and say it could have been this, that, and the other, but we know that electronic evidence is going to weigh heavy on this case. When we saw them coming out in that pouring rain with the truck, the U-Haul truck or whatever that vehicle that they had backed up to the laundry garage, boxes of cardboard boxes, what would we speculate would be in those boxes? Hard drives and whatnot. I'd like you to take that because you're an expert on this.
Okay, well, again, yes, as we said earlier, electronics is going to be pivotal to a lot of this investigation, whether it's cell phones or computers, whether it's actual cell phone records or text information or emails. All of these things are going to be critical. And also ATMs, bank records, online transfers, or whatever the case may be. Searches done on laptops or computers, things that are in the hard drives from vehicles. Vehicles have many hard drives. They have their own black boxes nowadays. If your car has OnStar, or you use any of these other similar type things, there's a lot of capabilities to download the information from these devices and search movements and things of that nature. So it's going to be critical. And, again, normally we package computer components, electronic components in non-static bags. But in any case, if they don't have those, then paper bags and cardboard boxes are typically what's used.
Right, right. Hey, I wanted to look quickly. Thank you for going over that. That was a great overview of the search. I wanted to say thank you for the super chat. Can dogs smell body waste? I'll let Brian take that. Dogs smell body waste. And I guess he's talking about excrement or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely they can. And although I don't train on human waste, we actually proof our dogs off of animal waste, specifically cat poop, because dogs are notorious for getting into the litter box. So we just use that as one of our proofing items. So we'll put some kitty poop in a box. We'll have other boxes of other items out there. They'll have hot dogs and different items in it. And then the one box will have our target. And we want the dog to go past all the other boxes and alert to the one box that we know has what has human remains in it. And like I said, we call that proofing, and we proof off of all kinds of things, right down to, I mean, we proof off of semen, and we proof off of menstrual blood, because, those are things that you're going to find that are not related to a dead body, but still have some of those same odors. And so we want to let the dogs know to exclude those items.
Right.
And,
It's fascinating because most people don't know that. We think of canines that they're just going to go out and search for people and, or find someone that's hiding somewhere. And then cadaver dogs will find a dead human body. But you don't think about along those lines. So that's information that, most common folk don't even know. So thank you for that.
All excrement has cellular material in it when it's passing through your intestines, and when it leaves your body, it has besides the waste components, but it has the cells there as well.
Yeah. One of the questions comes in from Carla. She says, "Is evidence collection easier or more preserved if a body is buried versus being on the surface?" Ed, I'll let you take that.
Well, it depends on what you're buried in. If it's a sand, it could be better for us. If it's clay or it's more wet, then it could be more detrimental to us in terms of adipocia, grave wax, things of that nature. And it also depends on what the pH of the soil is. Is it acidic or is it basic? All of these chemical aspects can affect the decomp. Is it a shallow grave? Is it a deep grave? Did the people who buried the body throw lime on top of them?
Right.
All of these things impact how we find evidence in those locations.
Here's an additional follow-up to that, and I'm sorry that I'm throwing things at you one at a time, rapid fire here. But Gabby Petito, some folks are speculating that she was wrapped in a blanket. I know I mentioned that once, that I felt early on that maybe he, did something to her in her sleep and then wrapped her up in a comforter and dragged her out to that location. And it was just a speculation on my part. If in fact that was one of the scenarios where he brought her out there and didn't bury her, but laid her down wrapped up in a blanket, would that help preserve any better or any less? And I'll let Brian or you take that, whoever wants to.
Well, it could protect the skin from exposure to the sun. in the fact that it was wrapped over there. But then again, given the indigenous wildlife there, I mean, they easily could take that off her and get to her body. So
Yeah. Hey, Brian, you have any experience with obviously searching and doing a recovery with lots of wildlife around? What any type of experience that you can give the audience of what that type of recovery and what some of the challenges are of wildlife, eating or pecking away at a decedent?
Well, the biggest challenge that we have with that, and what we call that, is scatter, wildlife scatter, and you can have the location of death or the location that the body was dumped, and animals will scatter bones 100 yards in every direction. So you may have an initial decomp site. You may have a cadaver dog that'll come in, and your dog is hitting on the dirt. Your dog is giving the alert and saying, "This is it. This is the source of the odor." And that's the spot where the body decomposed. But once the decomposure happened, the bones get scattered out, and so now you have bones, like I said, in every direction. We did a search once locally where the body was dumped in one place and bones over here, bones over there. The skull was at this end. There were 2 ribs laying on top of the ground over here. There were vertebrae and multiple small bones that were inside rats' nests, pack rats. And we were literally, the dogs were giving the alert, and we're tearing the nest up, and
Wow.
we're pulling the bones out of the bottom of these nests.
Hmm.
So animals will do lots of things. I know Dave Rader can probably, if he was here, he would tell you about the time that they found a skull 20 foot up in a tree, that a squirrel had drug the entire skull, the top of the skull, up into a tree, and it was sitting up in the crown.
Wow. I'd like to get Dave on and talk to him about that. But question that came up from Pam Ryden. She says, "Can dogs smell underwater? And thank you all for what you do."
So just like a human, I mean, if the dog's face, nose, any part of their mouth is underwater, they're not going to be able to smell anything. But if you dump a body in water, absolutely the canines can isolate that area so that you're not having to send a diver up and down, up and down, up and down until they find it. We'll put the dog up on the bow of the boat, and we'll drive the boat slow in a grid pattern over the body of water. And when the dog gets over where that odor is rising and coming out of the water, the dog is going to give the alert. And that's where we're going to say, okay, this is the spot. And they're going to send the divers down right there. Because dive teams, that's an expensive endeavor to bring those guys out. So you don't want to keep them out there all day, and you don't want to put them in the water unless you have a really isolated spot.
Excellent information, and I greatly appreciate you coming on here and sharing your experiences with all of us in the search and rescue field. Hey, I'm going to ask you, I don't usually do this, I'm going to put you on the spot. Brian Laundrie, is he dead or alive?
And early on, I really thought that he was just going to go out. When they said his car was there at the reserve and the family was saying, we don't know, he went for a hike and we don't know where he is, I thought for certain that he had gone and taken his own life. But now, as things have come together and it's becoming more and more evident that his parents were in collusion with him and they were helping him, I feel pretty certain that he's alive somewhere and he's hiding. And all I can say is Mr. Laundrie, it's going to come one way or another. So let's just get it over with.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
Mhm.
And again, I'm going to put you on the spot, Ed. What do you think? Is he dead or is he alive?
No, he's alive. He's a runner. He's not a killer. I mean, he's not a suicide. If he was going to do that, he would have did that before he drove all the way across country with his girlfriend's car, his fiance's car, to his parents, and did all these things that he did afterwards. It's not in his personality, in my opinion.
Yeah. I kind of agree. I think he is out there and he's watching a lot of this stuff. And I think it's just a matter of time before the wheels and the long arm of the law come and grab him and bring him to justice. And, again, This is all speculation, guys. I don't like to do it, but I know that a lot of people want to know. I got hundreds of emails and questions on a website. DutyRon, what do you think? DutyRon, what do you think? I want to see him brought in and face these charges. I think that the family deserves him to get prosecuted. I think we all, as a community, the world is watching this, the whole world, not just the United States. A couple of questions come in on the private chat. I just want to ask quickly of these. All things, what about the orange fluorescent paint at the crime scene? This is for you, Ed. We covered this on the Barbara Butcher one. The orange paint at the crime scene on the trees. What were they there for? And are they seeming to mark that area? Crime scene, it looked like bullet holes in one of the trees after they collected evidence. What's up with that?
I don't believe it is bullet holes. I'm not aware of that. But again, it's something, I looked into this after that question. It's something done in the forestry industry when they're marking the trees for like some trees are diseased and therefore they need to be taken down. Others is, to prevent forest fires. They'll start removing some dead trees that are possibly sources for kindle and fire to begin. Others are, again, if a search was conducted in that area and they're using your search and rescue training, there are certain symbols that we would paint in structures. We would paint certain symbols on the walls and so forth to designate that we already searched this area. It's been cleared. I'm not sure that was the case. I'm not aware of doing that with trees. But it's definitely not something I would do with ballistics evidence found in a tree.
Crime scene marking. No, it doesn't. Brian, what's your thoughts on that, Brian? I know you search out in the woods and all over the place.
So yeah, we use marking tape to identify areas where we've searched or trails that we've been on. And it just sounded to me, like maybe somebody that was just what they had. Maybe they didn't have any marking tape, but I've got some orange spray paint in the truck. Okay. Let's mark this area as clear so that the next teams come along know they've already searched that and they can move on.
Yeah, because I've seen you guys use the little, it looks like flag football, like something that would be hanging off the belt of a flag football player.
Yeah, we call it marking tape, and that's what it is. It's biodegradable. It comes in multiple colors: orange, yellow, pink, all kinds of different colors, and it's just something that's easy. It's lightweight. You can carry it, and I can tear off a piece and tie it to some scrub or a tree limb or whatever the case is, and make it as long as it needs to be to make it visible. And anybody who comes along behind me can say, okay, yeah, but we're still on the same trail, or this area has already been cleared, or whatever the case is. And those are the kinds of things that you go over at the briefing before you go out and search. Hey, everybody, we're using orange marking tape today, so when you clear an area, mark it with the orange marking tape.
There you go.
So that may be the same thing they were doing there. Just
so you're not doing double work. So they're not doing double work. I got it.
Exactly.
This next question comes in from Miss Maxwell. She says, what wet tissue samples of Brian could they have collected at this point from the laundry home? Now, we don't know this for a fact, but this is going to be for you, Ed, wet tissue samples.
I wouldn't believe there would be any wet tissue samples at the home.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything about it. That might be, that may or may not be valid info, but I have no knowledge of that. We don't have access to that. Mystery Maven.
Brian is trying to say something.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Brian. Go ahead.
I was going to say she may have misunderstood when we were talking about wet source for the canines, and wet source is actual tissue and dry source is bone. So I was thinking maybe that question came up and it was just a misunderstanding.
Okay, it could be possible. Thank you for that. The Mystery Maven sends in a question. She says, if a person went into the water, example, ocean, lake, and submerged themselves, if they submerge themselves, could a dog stay on the scent, or would the trail end at the water's edge? That's a great question. Brian, you want to take that?
And at the water's edge, and what your handler and what your search teams are going to do is they're going to start, because wherever you went in the water, you have to come out. So if you, if they went into the water and it's a creek, they're going to continue to work both sides of the creek until they can pick up that trail again. If the trail led into a lake, they're going to keep working the bank of that lake until they can, to see if that person comes out of the water someplace else. Because it's pretty common knowledge, if you're being chased by the police canines, again, you see it on TV, run in the water and they won't be able to follow you. And that's true. But we also have search tactics, and we understand that even if you go into the water, you have to come out someplace. Right. And we're just going to find where you came out and continue to follow the trail from there.
Excellent. Hey, I want to just play a quick clip of the Laundrie's neighbors across the street. They were talking about that they witnessed the Laundries go on this camping excursion. So I want to play this because I want some folks to see this, because a lot of my subscribers, a lot of the friends, they live outside the country and they don't really get access to this. So I'm going to play this quick. We're going to take a quick breather. It's only a couple of minutes. So I'm going to go full screen if you guys need a bathroom break, and then we're going to wrap it up. We're going to take a peek at Brian's dogs after this. Let's let this go.
And they join me now. Charlene and William, thank you very much for being here. I know you moved there at the beginning of the summer, but you're literally across the street. What did you observe when Brian returned from the trip and you saw that white van that had belonged to Gabby in the driveway?
Didn't know it was Gabby. We just assumed it was his van. We just thought they had come back from wherever. We didn't know they were on a trip. We just assumed they went back to their house or wherever they had gotten the house, wherever they were. We didn't know much about them at all. Nothing at all, actually. And they just came back home. We thought she was in the house with the parents or mother or whatever, and that was pretty much it. I mean,
so after that, the FBI came and took that van away. You saw Brian and his dad working on one of their campers in the driveway. Charlene, can you tell me about that?
I actually didn't. My husband saw that. I didn't really witness.
Okay, so William, what did you see
had gotten a camper,
in the driveway?
Yeah, well, I was doing some work in the front yard, and I noticed that they got a new camper for the back of the pickup. And I didn't think anything unusual. They got a new camper, so they wanted to put their own touch inside of it. I saw them doing some work.
That's the camper that we see in the park. There's photos of that as well. That's an overhead shot of it.
Then when they prepared for their trip, I saw them loading the camper.
Now, you're talking about Brian and his parents after he returned home. Is that correct? In a different camper?
Yes. The van is his. His father has a pickup truck, which they purchased a in-bed camper.
Like an attachment camper. And then you say that they packed up that camper, Brian and his mom and dad, and they went camping. Do you know that for sure?
We saw them. I saw them loading it up, and so I assumed they were preparing for, a camping trip with their new camper.
They were gone for the weekend.
Yes,
So how long after he got back, alone in that white van? How long after that was this? When you saw them working on this other camper and getting ready to go away together?
Yeah, I can't remember, the dates.
Week and a half.
Yeah, probably week and a half. I agree with that.
So
yes.
did the police ever talk to you about what you saw, the parents and Brian working on this new camper and then leaving for a few days? Did they ask you about that?
I believe that we did give them that information.
Mm-hmm.
What's so bizarre about this whole thing is that, as investigators, Ed and I scratch our heads and we say, Gabby Petito was living there for 2.5 years. She's reported missing. The son comes home. The fiance comes home without her. and they decide to go on a camping trip. It's just so suspect, and it's just so shady. It just doesn't make any sense. Brian, what are we going to see here? I'm going full screen with you so everybody can see the pup.
Oh, come on, come here, come here. Okay, well they're not gonna. There's the two girls.
All right, who are we looking at here?
So the black dog is my German Shepherd, and that's K9 Siri, and the brown dog is K9 Mila.
And the capabilities of the German Shepherd?
The German Shepherd is our live find area search, and Mila is our cadaver recovery.
Oh, look at them. How long have these two been in service?
Mila is 3 years old, and Siri is 2.5. And they've both been training since 3 months.
God bless them. Wow. They do such a great job. And, you know, when we were on the live the last time, you were talking to me about, you know, all the different missions that you guys have been out on. And it's you get the call, you go. Talk about what you guys do and how many missions you could potentially work in a year.
As far as actual missing persons cases, I think right now we have worked 70 cases this year on missing persons cases. And I haven't really kept count of how many times we've searched because we search so often. Just this last weekend on Saturday, we went and searched a couple areas for the OSBI, which is the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation. And then on Sunday, or I say Sunday, Saturday night, when we finished that, we came home and packed up and we drove to Sherman, Texas, and we searched an area in Sherman, Texas for Tim Miller and Texas EquiSearch on a case they have, a guy missing out of Houston. His truck was found up in Sherman, crashed into a creek by some railroad tracks. And so we were searching the immediate area around there because he hasn't been seen or heard from. And you know, we know his truck was there, so he had to have been there at some point. And so that's what we did just this last weekend. But
wow.
Yeah. So you get the call. Like I said, we were out searching that Saturday and my phone rings and it's Tim Miller and, hey, can you come search over here? And yeah, we'll be there tomorrow. So
I'm familiar with those calls from Tim Miller when he says, hey, do me a favor. I need you to call such and such law enforcement agency and get us the approval to go over there. Get on the phone, give them a call, and get back to me. So those are the kind of things, those are the kind of messages I get from Tim, and I'm just like, I'm on it. You know, I just go right through it.
Absolutely.
I want to say thank you, Brian, for hanging out with us. You are always a wealth of information. You bring a lot to the table when it comes to canines. If you can, please come back and join us again sometime soon on this case. I mean, I know I called you last minute, but you were just like, give me a minute to set up. I was like, come on at 10 o'clock. You're like 9:20. You were here and ready to go. So thank you for that, man. I appreciate you, brother.
No problem. We're glad to be here.
I'm going to link all of Brian's information for his organization. I encourage you guys to go over and support him. It will be down below in the description. He is doing God's work, going out with not just his dogs, but I'm sure he has a team of buddies, guys and gals that have certain dogs of all different kinds, bloodhounds and all different things. And if he is called on, he comes out. I don't think that these guys say no to too many assignments that you get, correct?
It would take a lot for us to say no, and it would have to be extreme circumstances. I mean, you know, we went out to go search in the same woods where they were doing a manhunt for a known cop killer. You know, we were going to go, so, you know, they needed us to find this little boy, so we're going to go regardless of who else is out there in the woods.
Right. And that's
thank goodness they found him before the search day, but we were going to go either way.
Yeah. And that's what makes you guys great. The organizations like EquiSearch and, you know, your organization is just a tremendous thing. Oklahoma Search and Rescue Council. You guys, I tip my cap to you. You're doing God's work out there. And I would be honored to, you know, lock arms and search with you guys anytime, any day, anywhere. So
ditto that for me.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Kel Mai sends in a $5 super chat and says, "Thank you, Ed, Brian, and DutyRon. God bless."
Thank
All right.
you.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you run. I appreciate you hanging out with us here for over an hour. I'm gonna wrap it up with Ed, but definitely please come on back and join us on future live streams. I appreciate you, and have a great weekend.
You bet. Call me anytime. You do the same.
Thank you, brother. Talk to you
All
soon.
right. Bye-bye.
All right.
Thank you, Brian.
Hey,
Thank you.
Thanks, man. Take care, Bri. Wow, unbelievable. Yeah, I thought you were talking to your stockbroker, so I took you off screen for a minute.
No, you know, my stockbroker. Hey, I'd be remiss if I didn't do this. Let's see if you can see this. I don't know if you can.
I'm gonna go full screen with it. Hold on a second. Let me go full.
I don't know.
It's kind of there. You got it good right there.
There's my dog.
Oh wow.
My yellow lab.
I see
His
him.
name is Buddy.
Wow.
Okay.
I love it. Love it. That was my very first dog growing up was Buddy. So yeah, very cool. Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Again, listen, we covered a lot of ground here tonight, and this was again a pinpoint live stream in regards to search and evidence recovery, crime scene. You know, I didn't want to get into going down some other roads, but there is a lot of work to be done, a lot of work being done behind the scenes, and it's important that we all back and support the feds, the state, the local law enforcement, because unbeknownst to us, and we are all pissed off because we want this scumbag dragged in. We want him hogtied and shackled and brought in before the cameras. But for that to happen, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of work to be done. So people are asking, what type of car was that?
It's a '69 Mustang Boss 302.
Nice. Awesome. Awesome.
It's the best thing that ever came out of California.
There you go. I'm not going to touch that because I got a lot of good friends in California watching right now. Hey, I want to say thank you to the replay viewers, all the great folks in the chat. You guys have had some great questions over this hour and 20 minutes. We are going to do more live streams. 67 or 68? They're asking you.
69.
See, you were wrong. See, who was that said 68 or 67? Karen Griswold. You got it wrong. But thank you for that. Again, I want to say thank you to the replay viewers, my moderators, everybody who has newly subscribed. I am DutyRon, a retired New York City police detective. I worked in fugitive enforcement. I went out there and grabbed folks that were on the run from court and went out of state, picked them up with the U.S. Marshals. They're some of the greatest guys out there. Ed is a retired crime scene investigator. He's got a tremendous amount of credentials, and he knows everything when it comes, well, I'll say almost everything when it comes to crime scene investigations. Blondie 1025, my good friend, you're up a little late, I might say. Blondie, you're up. It's definitely past your bedtime and probably past mine. Thank you for the $20 super chat. Blondie is a great friend of Crime Time with DutyRon, and she's a neighbor. She lives in Jersey. She lives over in Jersey. We got over 3,000 people hanging out in the chat. Let me see if I can pick out some of the maybe a question or two in regards to crime scene stuff. Black Rose, Joey Brooklyn, Janice Rubino, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Let's see. Karen says cameras at Monk Key Lighthouse. Did anyone search there for Brian? I got to say, if we're talking about it and it's chatter online and it's chatter out there in fake book land, either the feds or the feds send locals to do checks. I many times have called authorities in New Jersey or in Connecticut and said, hey, I think I got a perp, this perpetrator's guy's on the run. Could you go over to 2229 Main Street and check it out? And we'd fax over the warrant. We'd let them know what we got, and they would go over there most times and check for us. So not sure if they did do that. We don't have the answer to that. What is the noise that sounds like someone is playing with cups? Here's one of my Rosie Rose is part of my noise patrol. So she said someone's playing with cups. I don't know. I don't hear it. So But
Was that the feedback she was hearing from when Brian was on?
Probably Brian. I kept trying to mute him. He was having difficulties with his earpods. Anyways, let's move on. Can't wait. I like this one. I can't wait for Brian to do the perp walk. So there's beauty for all ages. She knows the deal, the perp walk. We've had many perps coming out and doing the perp walk with all the cameras there. So yes, can't wait for the cuffs and for him to be shackled and brought in. I just hope that it's alive and not dead. Let's see. Justice for Gabby. Absolutely. Justice for Gabby. I want to say that people that are in the chat saying his parents know where he is, I 100% wholeheartedly agree with that. Now, we could all be wrong, but I highly doubt it. I truly believe in my heart that they know where he is and what happened. So Justice for says lock up the dirty laundries. Yes. All right. Let me wrap it up here tonight. Ed, thank you so much. And guys, let me know in the comments what you think of this type of live stream. Ed has been kind enough to volunteer his expertise and be a correspondent for the show. He's said he's going to make himself available pretty much whenever he is to come live with me. And that's, to me, an asset to Crime Time with DutyRon. The amount of knowledge that he has in crime scenes and processing is so, it fits into what we're doing here. And I think it just could do anything but, it's just going to do anything but make this a better place and a better place to get good, valid information when it comes to evidence collection and crime scenes. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for being a part of this show and community. I think we're going to wrap it up. You got any final words for the audience?
Well, I'm just happy to be here and to share what I know with you all. I love your questions. I love educating the masses on what it is we do and try to dispel all that Hollywood stuff you see on television in the movies. Because that really, we spend a lot of our time giving in courtroom testimony, dispelling all the fiction from Hollywood and the movies, because people believe that that's the way real CSIs are, and it's not the case.
Yeah, and a lot of people are relying on their information from Facebook, and Facebook really can take you down some bad rabbit holes, because people that don't know anything about this stuff will start playing detective and start playing investigator, and that's some of the worst. It's some of the worst things in the cases like this, because it spreads misinformation like wildfire, and then before you know it, thousands of people they're like glued in and zoning in on fake nonsense, and that's what makes it bad. And that's why I think that this channel is great, because I'm bringing on experts. And we have had Barbara Butcher, we have from the chief, she's the chief of staff from New York City Medical Examiner's Office. We had Bill Cannon, who has his own channel, as a homicide detective sergeant. Brian, we have EquiSearch. We got all of the great experts in the field of search and recovery. And I even had an aviation retired police officer from the NYPD. He came on, gave his expert opinions on aerial searches, and to me, that's just we have the advantage, Ed, of working for the largest police department in the United States, right? So there's so much talent within our department. I can get Ed on the phone and say, Ed, I need a guy that's specialized, or gal that's specialized in this, and Ed will say, give me 10 minutes, I'll call you back. So that's the great part about working for the largest department in the United States. We've got resources and talent,
and you can really specialize,
right? And the talent pool is just we have so many of guys and girls who are great investigators. So that's what makes it great. Listen, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. I wanted to do 40 minutes, and now it's an hour and 30. So as I always like to end these live streams, God bless the world, God bless the United States of America, and God bless each and every one of us here in the chat, and all victims of crime and their families across the globe, but especially tonight and all of these nights that we're doing these live streams. Gabby Petito and her family, we send them strength, prayers, and positive vibes. On behalf of Ed Wallace and myself, Crime Time with DutyRon, we wish you guys a good weekend, and we will see you on the next live stream. Good night from New York.
God bless.